Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Rain Whalen.
And I'm Jan Picklesniff. Sometimes it's silly.
You know, wait, was that Pickle Sniff or Pickle Smith?
Sniff. Yeah.
Is it hyphenated?
No. One word.
You know, I'm pretty sure I've said this on the show before, but people have asked me, like, when you make up these names, if, like, I know what you're going to say, and I'm like, no. And that makes it half the fun, because I have no idea what he's going to say. But then, like, I was explaining it to someone, and they're like, so he does it, like, every season, right? I'm like, no, it's just every other season. Because some seasons, he intros. And they're like, oh, so do you do it? I'm like, no, that's his thing. like I'm not going to take that's his thing. They're like, oh, so what's your thing? I'm like, I'm just there.
Yeah, sometimes to break up the monotony of the show, which is, we've done, hundreds of these, it's fun to just, do something, like this season I just wore the same gray shirt,
Yeah.
It was just fun, and I just thought, he probably won't even notice, and he didn't. So
until you said it, and then I was like, oh my god, he has been. I think that's what I was gonna do this season. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna wear the same shirt every episode, but then I immediately forgot that's what I was gonna do.
My mistake was not making it obvious enough. Like, it should have been like a bright orange shirt or something, so you'd know, like, oh, it's the same shirt every time. But whatever. You live and you learn, and I'll figure something else out.
I mean, technically, as we learned, I am wearing what I wore last week. I'm wearing my Dino Land USA shirt that I bought for when Ashley and I went to Disney in March. And I've got my HTO hat on that you can't tell, and my Beats. So, like, I literally look like I've been waiting for this episode for an entire week. Like if someone were to queue up last week's episode and this week's episode, or it would look like we just filmed them back to back.
Yeah.
And that you just changed your shirt because you didn't want to look like you were wearing the same stuff. Like that's, so I'm gonna be honest, that's something that Ashley and I try to figure out when we watch Smosh is, okay, when did they film these episodes? Because a lot of the times you can tell that they're filmed in the same week because some of the cast members are wearing the same clothes, like in different ones. I've heard about how Smosh films, like they film for an entire week, and it's, dude, I don't know how they can do that.
Well, I mean, it seems fun, so I mean that's probably.
That's true, and I'm sure there are downtime in between filming, that way they can, not always feel like they're at work.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, maybe we should become more famous than we already are.
Yeah, of course.
And collab with Smosh. Dude, I'd lose my fucking shit if, like, we got an email one day from, like, Ian. He was like, hey, like, we'll fly you guys down to LA, like, come hang out with us. And be like,
oh my god, we're such huge fans.
Like, no, you don't want us there, trust me, we'll embarrass you guys.
No, it turns out it's a Carrie situation. They're just making fun of us,
Nah. They make us play Moose Master with them, and they just fucking destroy us. No, we were watching Smosh before we got started, and so that's the only reason why it's on my mind. But yeah. So Jeremy, did you watch anything over the weekend?
Okay,
leading up to this episode?
Technically, yes, I did. So, my dad and his wife came into town. Dad and I played golf on Saturday. My legs are a little sunburned, whatever. And was it, Saturday night, after we got back from eating Mexican food. It was really good. We were winding down, and we were whatever, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to watch anything on TV?" He goes, "Actually, yes." He goes, "The Accountant 2 is on Amazon Prime," and I said, "Okay." And so we watched The Accountant 2. Not something I was eager to see, but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't fantastic. The first one's pretty good. I had issue with the first one when I saw it. I've only seen it once, so I don't. So if I revisit it, I'm sure I'll be a lot more forgiving. And I was probably just in a bad mood. But I didn't like that. Spoilers for The Accountant, by the way. I didn't like how Ben Affleck and John Bernthal were brothers. I didn't like that they were brothers. I felt like that wasn't set up enough. And then it's like, what are the odds? You know what I mean? Like, that makes no sense.
And then that's like the whole plot of the second one.
Yeah, now we're just like, they're brothers and it's fine. You know what I mean? It's whatever. But his character isn't utilized as much in the second one as he is in the first one. With his, he's on the spectrum and all of that. That doesn't really, it's not that important in the second one. So
I was going to say, I've never seen The Accountant. I'm going to be honest. I saw the trailer. It's all right. I saw the trailer and I was just kind of like, okay, I guess. But I distinctly remember that being like such a big like draw. They're like, oh, he's on the autism spectrum, and I'm like,
yeah. I mean, it's a decent enough movie. I love J.K. Simmons, and he's in both, and so whatever. But there was a scene I remember in the first one that made me squirm, and he's doing like his nightly ritual, and like he's playing super loud, inconsistent music and flashing strobe. It's to help him desensitize himself with, overwhelming situations and his triggers and his anxieties and in his, what would you say, like, whatever, like, that's, like, one of his things, like, he gets, like, too over, sensitized to whatever, but he rolls his shins, and, so, he gets, like, a thick, wooden, bar, wooden tube, whatever, and he's rolling his shins. I don't know if you've ever done that before. It's like what
I have not.
Do, it's to toughen up their shins, so when they kick, it doesn't hurt, whatever. But oh man, like if I even like accidentally rub my shin the wrong way, like I'm done for the day, And he's just there rolling them. No, I can't handle it. It's weird what bothers me, but that definitely bothered me. I was like, ugh.
Well, again, I just like, I don't know what it was, man. I just was like, we've talked about this on the show. I love Ben Affleck, and I love John Bernthal, but I just, when I saw the first trailer, I was just like, eh. And then I was like, it didn't go well enough to necessitate a sequel. And then I read apparently critics liked the sequel more, that they didn't really care for the first one, but thought the second one was slightly better.
I don't know if I agree with that, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, again, it's fine.
It's what every actor and filmmaker goes into. Like, we just hope one day it's fine.
Fine. And you know what? It was.
Well, buddy, with that being said, welcome back, everyone. Jeremy, what are we discussing this week?
I'm so excited. Today, we are discussing Damien Chazelle's descent into the madness and debauchery that is late silent filmmaking in transition to sound filmmaking with Babylon.
So, as I mentioned in our tease last week, as soon as I heard about this movie, I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
I was super on board, like with the cast listing, and I was like, yeah, like let's do this. And I just never got around to seeing it. I didn't get to see it in theaters, and then when it came out, I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy it first thing, and no, never bought it. So this was a first watch for me.
I mean, just to be able to watch for the first time again, you know? Yeah, so
sorry, go ahead.
I was following the movie for a while. I was following it when it was originally supposed to be about Clara Bow. Because I was a huge fan of Damien Chazelle's. I had seen Whiplash, La La Land, First Man. I was all in. Okay. And so periodically I would look up directors that I really liked and seeing what they had coming up. And that was one of them. In fact, at the time, Tobey Maguire was credited as Charlie Chaplin. At the time,
I feel like I remember reading that.
Yeah, and it had a different name, and it was it was going to be a more of a true to fact telling of that time in Hollywood, with like Clara Bow and like Douglas Fairbanks and Charlie Chaplin and all these other. And then it slowly changed, and then other people got added, and Tobey Maguire is no longer Charlie Chaplin, and Margot Robbie is now doing it instead of Emma Stone, and it wasn't going to be a biopic anymore. It was going to be sort of a fictionalized version of this time, and I was still so excited. I saw the trailers. I thought it looked amazing. I was in Lubbock visiting Dad, and I told Haley, I go, listen, I really want to see this movie. Bad. And she goes, okay, let's go. And I go, honey, it's 3 hours long. Like, I didn't want to put her through that. Like, come on, And she goes, it's okay, it's fine. And we went, and she enjoyed herself. How could you not, right? But I was surprised, because the runtime is pretty long. But
yeah,
the runtime, to me, is very significant. It's very important. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I was overwhelmed by just how entertaining the film was, how loud and bombastic, and the excess of the film was just tremendous. And I loved the just the juxtapositions between silent and sound filmmaking, and how Chazelle weaves the story and devolves the story in terms of, I would say, like, from heyday to, to it's time to draw the curtains. Like, it was emotional, and I loved it. What did you think?
So I also loved it. I thought the first third of the film was completely unhinged. Which we'll get to. The absolute, like you said last week, lawlessness of them filming these silent films. And then the second half, or the second third, being a little bit more rigid and being a little bit more structured to kind of what, not exactly, but what would eventually become a modern day film set. Yeah. And then, of course, the back third of the fallout of everything, which I'm sure, as we talked about in our Sunset Boulevard episode, sadly, actually happened to a lot of the silent film actors of that era, not being able to transition.
Norma Desmond is mentioned in the in Babylon as well.
Yeah. I will say, before I move on, I told Ashley we were doing this, and she was like, "Oh, I really want to watch that." I was like, "Great," because I think I've mentioned it, that anytime we watch a movie for the show, I want Ashley to watch it with me, just because I like watching movies with Ashley. Now, if it's a movie I know she won't like We Need to Talk About Kevin, I usually tell her, like, hey, you might want to sit this one out. Or Irreversible.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that she was like, yeah, I want to watch it. We got 30 minutes in. She was like, yeah, I've seen all I need to see. And left. And went and played on her new fancy computer. And it took me a long time to get through the movie because I kept pausing, running into the bedroom, be like, oh my God, you actually should continue to watch this with me.
Yeah.
And she was just like, no, it's okay.
Did she even make it to the title card?
No.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
She made it to the party when Brad Pitt shows up, and that was it.
What?
Yeah.
That wasn't even 30 minutes, man. That's nothing. So it's like 15 minutes.
Yeah. She was like, "Yep, I've seen all I need to see. I'm good."
Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I was like, okay. I mean, I guess you can leave me here with my. Well, and then she saw the runtime. She was like, "Oh my God, 3 hours." I was like, yeah. Well, because I failed to mention that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, no, I understand. It's all right. But with that being said, Jeremy, would you like to tell everyone a little bit of the very long plot of this movie?
Yeah, I'm going to do this super fast, super generalized, because I really am excited to get into this. But Babylon follows the Hollywood elite as we watch their careers and their filmmaking in the mid to late 20s, as they're making silent films, and it's of course excessive and lawless and chaotic and insane, right? We have newcomers to the Hollywood scene, and as they're just getting started, things are starting to change in Hollywood as sound has become a now prevalent, a looming presence in Hollywood in 1927 with the jazz singer, Al Jolson's film. And then we transition and we start to see these same people deal with the repercussions of this new technology. And with that comes a different way of making movies. And it's not the way that they're used to, and it's not the way that they particularly want to make movies. As we watch careers continue to move forward, we see some characters thrive in sound and really make a name for themselves. Some sort of falter and stumble. And as we keep moving forward, everyone seems to stumble and seems to fall off and seems to become less relevant in the eyes of Hollywood, to where by the end of the film they're all gone and the tides have turned, and everyone who was on top of their game and of the Hollywood system is now nowhere to be found. Either they've died or they've just become obscure. And I mean, that's Babylon. So,
yeah. Yeah, in a nutshell.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to be referencing our Sunset Boulevard episode a lot because, that movie in particular was sort of already like a commentary on this counterculture of the transition from silent to talkies, in the form of I can't remember her character's name. But anyway, I feel like what Damien Chazelle does is takes what we've learned from history of Hollywood and just cranks it to 11. Spinal Tap is on my mind. But I truly feel like he was like, we know how sort of lawless all these silent film stars were. What happens if we just dial that up even more.
Well, and I would argue that it's not really dialed up that much, if I'm being honest with you. And
yeah, probably not.
really what this film is it's Singing in the Rain.
Okay.
Because this is the plot of Singing in the Rain. So like when Manny goes to see Singing in the Rain, that's why he's having such a visual reaction at the end, because that's his story. He's lived this. And this is just a Hollywood version of his life, basically, of what happened to Nellie and to Jack and to everybody. And yeah, I think it's really interesting that he even put Singing in the Rain in the movie at all, because they're so similar. But I think it's, this is more grounded in reality in terms of, how people actually were and what they were doing. And it's not dialed down, right? Like it is in Singing in the Rain, which, by the way, Singing in the Rain is an incredible movie. Everybody should see it.
Because Ashley was coming in and out a lot, and I asked her, I was like, "Have you ever seen Singing in the Rain?" She was like, "No." I was like, "Oh my god,
yeah,
I have failed you."
It is an incredible, and it mirrored so much of Manny's life that's why he was having such a reaction to it. But yeah, so okay, I want to talk about just Damien Chazelle and his way of just his style, right? Because what we have here is a film that is about, filmmaking, the process, the excess of success, and the debauchery of, fame and wealth and fortune. But he's filming it like it's Whiplash, which I loved, right? It's quick editing, it's back and forth, it's the whip pans, it's the montage of the beats and the rhythm of the scene. It's incredible. So in the melding of all these things together, so we have, like, let's say, for instance, we have Manny going to get the camera, okay? We have Nellie filming her first silent film. We have Spike Jonze losing his mind because he can't finish his movie. We have all these things.
That was the cameo Jeremy was talking about last week, everyone.
I was like, he's gonna lose his mind when he sees Spike Jonze just being a lunatic in this movie. And I was right, and you were like, "Oh my God, Spike Jonze is out of his mind." So we have all these things going at the same time, and I love how Chazelle edits these things and has them in a certain rhythm where it's not overwhelming, but there's such high tension, and this happens throughout the film. He's always building tension, and it's always with these overlapping scenes that are happening simultaneously. Each of them have their own tension, but stacking them and going back and forth heightens the tension even more. Another example would be Nellie and, hold on, what's his name? I am so sorry. Sydney. Nellie and Sydney at that very upper crust hoity-toity party, right?
Yeah.
They're both struggling with their identity in Hollywood. They're both feeling like they don't belong anymore. They're feeling like their best work is behind them, and they don't know if they have a future in this business. And since they're both going through that, it makes sense that they're both at this party, and they're both having to participate sort of against their will in this sort of networking, sort of kiss-assy sort of, photo op, disgusting display of please let me still work here.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you're bringing this up now, because at the center of that is Manny, who we see become you just said identity. He sort of loses his identity the more he is succeeding.
Yeah.
He because I read this today. Not today. I read it last night while I was watching the movie, because I was just like, I got to know more. I need more context.
Yeah.
Because I needed to ingest this world. Like, it wasn't I don't understand, but it was like, I want to understand more of this world.
Sure.
And yeah, and we really see that with Manny. We see him lose himself the more he gets success and the more he is progressing through the industry. Americanizing his name, because pretty much everything up until the party, we're introduced to him as Manuel. But then he starts going by Manny, Americanizing his name. When people ask him, "Oh, you're from Mexico, Spain," I'm from Spain, because
Spain is more. Yeah.
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 And it's almost as if Manny, somewhere deep down, assimilates to be accepted, as where Nellie and Sydney are, like you just said, they don't really fit in here. It's a please let me continue to work kind of thing. And I think that's something else that's so great about the movie. And Damien Chazelle showing us the differences from when it was the silent film era to now. That, especially with Manny being almost coldly, making these decisions, like telling Sydney to essentially do blackface,
Yeah.
to look darker, firing Faye, because the town has changed, and being a lesbian isn't as accepted, still not. And
in her case, it's not just her sexuality, it's her, it's just her whole thing is sexual. That's her thing, that's her that's her act, right? It's like, that's not family oriented, and we're moving towards a more family oriented space, more like, we can't, they didn't say it, but it's more like, we get more money if more people see it, or we get more money if if we can allow more people in, right? It's sort of one of those things where it's like, her overly sexual act and her just her whole shtick is just, now it's just too much now. We're used to.
Yeah, and again, it is sort of like, Manny doesn't experience the fall and the consequences of his actions until the very end of the movie, when he's forcibly told, "Get the fuck out of LA."
Right. Well, that's also Nellie's fault, but
well, yeah. Yeah.
Which is interesting, because you're right. Manny sort of has his rise to fame. Well, not fame, but his rise to success during the sound era, where everyone else at their peak and at their height was in the silent era. I guess apart from Sydney, because obviously you need sound for music, but I would say, Jack and Nellie, especially, where they're both there at the same time and in the same day, getting their start in this film industry. It's almost like she was already made for this. She was made for this silent filmmaking. And this, insane way of making films, which is, this lawless, bombastic, over the top way of making films. Whereas Manny, he slowly gets there, but as soon as he gets any success, it's during sound. And so he's starting to collaborate well. He's having good ideas. He is, making his way further and further up the ladder. But yeah, with Nelly especially and Jack, they don't seem to be able to make it in sound as well. And so this movie is so fantastic. Again, there are some criticisms of this film that I just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't get why people think that this is his least, like, his weakest film. I think that that's crazy. I don't think it has a weak film, to be honest. But
wait, so you're saying you choose La La Land over Moonlight? See, that joke would have worked better if Moonlight was right here, but I was like, fuck, what was that fucking movie?
Yeah, no, but in terms of Chazelle's filmography, I don't think he has a weak one. And I definitely don't think this is one of them.
No, I agree.
And here's why. I think that this is a great example of it, is we have the sequence of silent filmmaking where Nelly's doing her thing, Spike Jonze is doing his thing, Jack's doing his thing, Manny's doing his thing. It's all happening at the same time.
I love that you're not calling Spike Jonze by his character's name, because it's Otto. But honestly, like I texted you, I'm sure Chazelle told Spike Jonze, do whatever you want. And Spike Jonze was like, okay, he's going to be a German filmmaker, and I'm going to be at a 10 the whole time. And Chazelle was like, great.
I have a list here of who people are inspired by. And I figured that part of his inspiration was F.W. Murnau, who was German.
Oh, okay.
So that makes sense.
Anyway. But
so, like, all of this is happening. It's such an interesting way to make film. I love that they're highlighting a female film director.
Which
she
was apparently real.
Yep. She's a real person. And yeah, I'm trying to find her name. She was based on a filmmaker. She was one of the first female directors, and she also invented the boom mic.
Yeah, I did read that she felt like it would be easier, which is kind of funny.
Yeah,
when we get to this, but we'll get to that later.
Right, because this is why I find the film so amazing, because we have this and we have this sequence, and like, it's so funny. Both of these scenes I'm about to talk about are hilarious. And like, the guy who gets stabbed, impaled really, by that flagpole, they're like, well, he had a drinking problem.
And he probably ran into it.
That just is so funny to me. And so they're just trying to problem solve. But then we have that in mind. And then Al Jolson and the jazz singer come out. And now it's 1928, and now we make sound films. And how we make sound films is the exact opposite. It's quiet. It's not just reserved, but it's restrictive, right? Nelly can no longer just do whatever she wants. She has to be right here at this time, on this mark, right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she has to say the lines at a certain volume. She has to time it perfectly, and no one else can make any sort of noise. It is true, by the way, that they did used to put cameras in those boxes because cameras are loud.
Now they're still loud, but they, or at least IMAX cameras are really loud. Yeah. But I'm sure they figured out how to you will never hear that. But
film cameras are allowed, but obviously digital cameras are not allowed.
yeah.
But yeah. So, and I love again the editing of this because it's repetitive, but in a building the tension sort of way. It's repetitive, right? And every little thing that goes wrong, and the tensions are building, and you can tell it's hot because they can't have the air conditioning on because it makes noise, and they're hot, they're frustrated. This new way of making films is so annoyingly structured and organized, and it's not fun, it's not freeing, it doesn't seem like making art anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it is by far one of the funniest sequences in the whole.
Yeah. I was gonna mention it if you weren't. Fucking PJ Byrne losing his goddamn mind in both scenes.
Yeah.
Like when I can't remember her character's name, but when the director goes, "What's your name?" Tim. Tim, you're fired. What? You heard her, get the fuck off the set. And then his whole, everyone shut the fuck up. Dude, it's he losing his, it's so great. It makes me wonder if Chazelle had seen some episodes of The Boys and was like, I need that guy.
Well, really,
yeah, dude.
He is one of the funniest people in The Wolf of Wall Street. I know you haven't seen that, but
yeah,
he's hilarious in The Wolf of Wall Street.
But yeah, but I really did like that Chazelle really showed us the juxtaposition of making a silent film versus the early stages of filming sound. Of course, by the 30s, they've kind of figured it out to make it work in their favor, like filming outside and of course, obviously now for a modern audience, they've figured it out. But I think it does highlight how frustrating it was, like Nelly getting mad at the sound guy. Like, I want direction from my director, not the fucking sound guy.
Yeah.
And Nelly, trying to, move with the times because this is the new thing. And if she wants to stay relevant, then she has to adapt. Also, again, all the nonchalant deaths in the movie were fucking hysterical. Like when they get the camera guy out of the booth and they're like, he's dead. Like they were just so, but yeah, again, even how the director, because it's the same director who is directing Nelly, she's having to adapt and give direction with her hands because she can't yell anymore. It was really cool. And since you've taken a film history class, I'm assuming a lot of that was more or less how it started.
Yeah, kind of.
With sound.
There's this famous shot of Al Jolson and the jazz singer, and he's playing the piano, and his mom is behind him, and he's looking at her, like craning his neck over while he's playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
To talk to her. The only reason he's doing that is because the microphone is right here. It's in between them. And so he's having to change and adapt his acting and his blocking to be able to get his voice on the microphone. So having them hanging, I hadn't had any experiencing or reading about them hanging them from the ceiling. But I mean that makes sense. That they would be hanging from the ceiling. Normally they would just be on the ground. In Singing in the Rain, she's I forgot the actress name, but she's she's got that horrible voice, and she can't get it right because she keeps moving her head around, and they keep telling her she needs to keep still because that's where the mic is. you know.
Uh-huh.
And again, there's a lot of parallels between this film and Singing in the Rain. But because that's how it was. I mean, people had to adapt to this new technology, and it means they had to retrain themselves how to act around a microphone,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yeah, and like I said, I'd probably be bringing up Sunset Boulevard a lot. I remember the first time my mom showed me that movie. She told me like exactly that, what you just said of actors having to retrain themselves on how to act because, you know, and I'm sure we've talked about it on some of the silent films we've done. You know, that's where a modern term of overacting would come from because since there's no sound, they need to express with their body and with their face what's going on in the scene. And then when sound came into play, well, you don't have to, you can act more subtly and more, you know, uh, um, I can't think of the word, but you have your voice to help you act instead of you having to use your body as much.
sure. Sure. I would.
I don't know why I brought that
That,
up.
well, I would argue that it would. I have a problem with the theory that they were overacting, and it's because
Well,
like,
I'm gonna.
for them they're just acting because these are stage actors, right? So they
Right.
from the stage and from vaudeville, and so they're acting to the back row, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not overacting; they're just stage acting, right?
Right. Right.
It does give the perception of overacting, especially for us who live 100 years in the future.
Yeah.
But literally over 100 years into the future in some cases.
Yeah.
And so it does seem like overacting, but I don't know. And I also
Uh-oh.
a couple of things that I wanted to mention before I forget. One, I was really surprised Samara Weaving was casted.
Oh, yeah.
She looks so much like Margot Robbie that I
Yeah.
thought it was funny that I'm sure they did it on purpose, that she was cast as that role to be this sort of adversary to Nellie, right? But I thought that was cool because then, of course, Nellie's going to overshadow her, blah, 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 all that stuff. I thought that was neat. Second.
Well, and they did the same thing to use another modern Margot Robbie film. They did the same thing in Barbie with oh my god, I don't remember that actor, Emma McKay or Emma Mackey, because Emma Mackey looks a lot like Margot Robbie, and they actually apparently cut a lot of jokes out of that they were going to compare Margot Robbie and yeah.
So I thought that was neat. But
Yeah.
also, so like speaking of like theories and sort of like the hearsay and hypothesis, I don't know if really that's how people reacted to the jazz singer. Like in the theater, like I don't know. Maybe
Like standing up clapping.
Yeah, because the movie wasn't done. This is like the beginning or the middle of the movie. Like this is not the ending of the movie. And it even got the famous line that "you ain't heard nothing yet" thing. I mean, like I don't know if they truly. I think that's sort of like a myth or that sort of like legend of the jazz singer, sort of like how when the Lumiere brothers filmed, the train coming into the station, people sort of like got out of the way. No, I don't think that's true. People aren't idiots. Even back then, they understand that nothing's coming towards them. But
right.
But it's fun to theorize. But I don't know. Although it does obviously highlight and present this idea that the jazz singer really was a watershed moment in filmmaking, which it absolutely was. That's not up for debate. The jazz singer changed everything. Not that there wasn't sound before then, but this was like the sound film.
Well, and that was something I was going to ask you. I remember, why did I say remember? Watching the movie, did they really have orchestras on set while they were filming?
That's a wonderful question. I thought the exact same thing because I go, why? But it's probably just for atmosphere and for the actors. It's so that they, they have a sense of timing and rhythm because it will be played a lot of times during the movie. So there will be an orchestra, there will be a piano player, there will be someone there accompanying the film. Not in Margot Robbie's, not in Nellie's, which I thought was odd that it was completely silent. So I am unaware of that side of film history, that maybe a lot of them weren't accompanied with music, which, I mean, makes sense. But yeah. It's so odd to me that they wouldn't be. But it's because I've only ever seen representations of a silent film having someone play the piano in the theater.
Right.
So
yeah, I remember years ago in high school when I was in orchestra, we all to get like extra credit on something because we didn't really have a final for orchestra, is we all went to Ector County Theater in Odessa and watched a silent film, and they had an accompanying, like a live accompanying orchestra, which was really cool. And we were like this is pretty. I was like, this is pretty rad.
Yeah.
Everyone else was like, this extra credit better be worth it. I'm like we're witnessing something that people got to see like 90 years ago. Like, this is so cool. I don't remember. It was a Western.
I could guess, but I'm not going to. It could have been The Great Train Robbery. That's what I would assume. How long was it? Do you remember?
Dude, I don't remember, man.
I mean, that was.
I also remember feeling like the senior next to me was flirting with me and being a little sophomore. I was like, oh man, oh my god. But no, yeah. No, I was just curious about that because I saw that, especially during the sequence of Spike Jonze's just absolute crash out for 15 fucking minutes.
Yeah.
Dude, I lost my fucking shit. I was like, oh my god, fucking Spike Jonze.
Yeah.
He's an absolute madman. And I've also been told heard that he's the chillest dude ever. But then you see him in this, and then like the scene you've told me about in The Wolf of Wall Street, the whole like, really hope it can suck you. Yeah. It's just insane. But okay, I wanna transition a little bit because we haven't talked about it enough. And that's Brad Pitt as Jack Conrad.
Sure. Yeah.
Of course, I know I've mentioned it on the show when we did Fight Club and we did 12 Monkeys. I was like, that can't be the only Brad Pitt movie we've done.
Yeah, we've done.
Have we done another one?
Yeah, of course we did. The Assassination of Jesse James. That was just a few weeks ago.
That's right. If I haven't made it known enough, I fucking love Brad Pitt.
We've also done Time in Hollywood. So.
Oh my fucking god, that's right. Jesus Christ. Oh my god, I'm terrible at this.
That's okay. Right.
But anyway, I love Brad Pitt, and I love that he gets this opportunity to do two things I feel like he's been doing in his career lately, which is one, have fun, especially during, again, the first third of the movie where Jack Conrad is king of the world.
Yeah.
And so Jack he's on the list in every party. He gets to have sex with whoever he wants to. He is literally boundless. And And while I was watching, I was like, yeah, Brad, you can tell he's just having fun, which is what Tyree Henry said on the behind the scenes of Bullet Train, which is he was like, I feel like Brad just wants to have fun right now. And I would agree to that.
I mean, it's a fun character to play, especially in the beginning, right? Because, I mean, you're right, he's at the top of this game. He is the movie star, right? His influences, Douglas Fairbanks, John Gilbert, Rudolph Valentino, and Clark Gable. Sort of an amalgamation of all those guys.
It makes me wonder who Brad drew on the most.
I mean, in terms of look, I mean, it's Douglas Fairbanks. I mean, that's all I saw.
Oh, for sure.
The mustache. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I love that we finally get to see the real sadness behind Jack crack when he gets the word that George has finally killed himself.
Yeah.
Which also shout out to Lucas Haas. Fucking My Chemical Romance, fucking Brick, fucking. Did we do another movie with him in it?
He's in Inception. He's in the beginning.
That's right. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, Lucas Haas is awesome, but I feel he played George so well. But yeah, when George kills himself, that's when the cracks that were already starting to form with transitioning to sound finally break Jack.
Yeah.
And he turns into a sad character the rest of the movie. You know, he ruins his relationship with Catherine Watterson, which, oh my God, I fucking love Catherine Watterson. And then, dude, I was not expecting him to kill himself at all.
Yeah.
But I had a suspicion. You know, when he's telling Faye, you know, when she asks him, "Are you okay?" And he pretty much says without saying, like, "I'm done. I'm washed up. I'm done. I can't do this anymore." And you know, it's so sad because, I mean, again, I don't know extensive film history like you do, but I would assume a lot of other silent film stars who couldn't transition into sound felt this despondent, like what we're seeing with Jack.
I mean, sure. To be clear, I'm not like an expert on film history or anything. I've just
you're an expert.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of people felt, you know, like abandoned by Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, that sense of, you know, the "what have you done for me lately?" You know, I mean, if you can't make it, I mean, but of course, like this whole film and a lot of other films like this are all drawn from the conclusion that, of course, people in this industry have, and of course, people who are outside of it also seem to have the same opinion, where if you make it in Hollywood and you lose it, like that's it, you're done. Like you have failed, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what you do afterward. I think people seem like the feeling that you get when you find out that an actor that you love that you haven't seen in a while is now a real estate agent somewhere else, you know? And that feeling you get where you're sort of like a little sad, a little bummed out.
Yeah.
Like that's this, but turned up all the way. This is like, if I don't get to have my entire career for my entire life here in Hollywood, making films, being a movie star, I have failed. No matter what. No matter what they do afterward. It is always either this or it's nothing. It's I've succeeded and I'm in Hollywood, or I'm out of Hollywood, which means I have failed. Period. And that's what sort of this movie is drawn off that conclusion, and what a lot of us probably feel like. Like if you've made it and you lose it, that's the ultimate defeat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really not true. Right? Like, if
Yeah.
I were to get a job, you know, being like the manager of, I don't know, like some sort of crazy store or something, and like
Yeah.
I'm like the top manager of the store, and I get
Right.
a new job doing something else. I didn't fail. I just moved on to a different job.
Right.
That's not how it works in Hollywood. That's not how it feels. And I don't really know why that is. I don't know why we feel that way. I think it's because everybody wants to be a movie star. Everybody wants to work in Hollywood. Everybody wants to be famous and make all this money. And it seems like that's the ultimate goal for some. And if that goes away, then what else do you have left? Right?
I think it's a little bit of that. And I also think maybe it is this sense of purpose as well. Like, if I can't do this, then I have no purpose anymore.
Sure.
And I think it is kind of like, I do agree with what you said, about wanting to make it and wanting to be famous, but it is sort of like this. I'm trying to find the right word.
Sure.
But like, I had it and I lost it, man. Because you're right. You're right. Because it is sort of like a modern thing now as well. I mean, it's continued to be a thing in Hollywood. Uh, where actors sometimes just can't bounce back. We've especially seen it, in our time with actors who completely lost their careers. And then, some have bounced back, maybe they just took a break and then they got a project that, revitalized their career. I mean, we talked about that last week with Dennis Hopper,
Sure.
and that's not a modern movie, but for the 80s, that was pretty big for Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
I think it is, I think it's both of those things. I think it's a sense of purpose and it's a sense of, fame is everything.
Right. Or like this career is everything. It doesn't, I don't know, like, it's definitely cultural because I don't know if other countries feel this way. But it does seem to be like that. And so, like, but of course, in Jack's case, like, this was his entire life. This is what he's always wanted to do, and it's something that he was very good at and that he was successful in. And so once that dwindle and go away, and he just couldn't get out from under it, then what else does he have, right?
Can I say the saddest scene, besides the fact of that scene that he has with Faye, where he essentially confesses all of what he's been feeling. But for me, the saddest scene was when he's on the phone with Irv, Max Mendel. I've never been able to pronounce his last name. And he just straight up tells him, like, just be honest with me. The project's shit, and you need me to bail you out. I just want you to be honest. And Irv begrudgingly is like, yeah, it's shit. I need you to bail me out. And he was like, okay, I'll be there. And, it's so sad because Jack is essentially, his worst fear, of course, is realized that, yeah, he is irrelevant now. And his fame only has this much pull now instead of this much pull like he used to have.
Right.
Like, there's still some weight to his name, but not as much anymore. And yeah, it's so, when I gear up for the episode we do, I do probably that much research beforehand. After, I do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly I look for synopsis, when it was released, maybe what it was released against, and the genre. And that's all I want to know for now. And when I read that this was a black comedy, I was like, or black comedy drama, I was like, well, all I've seen so far is comedy. So where's the drama come into play? And I feel like that really came in the form of course, Nelly.
Yeah.
Which I guess we'll get to her downfall here in a second.
Of course.
But really, Jack, I feel like the real drama came with Jack, because it was just, like we've been saying, the start of the movie, we get to see him on top of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he gets to tell a producer, like, no, I'll release my movie on the 18th. Thursdays are classier. And the producer's like, yep, nope, you're right. Yep, let's do that. And then he can't even get Irv on the phone in 1930, and keeps getting passed off. You know, so it's so, and it's so expertly done.
You're right. It's like, okay, I would compare it to like when Jack gets the phone call about George. Okay,
mm-hmm.
The entire movie pivots there. To now we're on the downward slope here. We're on the other side now.
Mm-hmm.
And I would compare it to, it made me feel the same way, like in Requiem for a Dream, when the title card for Fall comes crashing down with that garage door sound. You know what I mean? Because that's where the turning point is there. That's where the turning point is here. Is when he gets that phone call. George is dead. Here we go. People are starting to go. And, and you know, figuratively and literally. And yet, with Nellie, in Singing in the Rain, it's sort of like it's meant to be comedic, is that woman has such a horrendous speaking voice, that, you know, people didn't really take that into consideration until sound, right? And then that matters. With Nellie, it is her voice, it's her attitude, it's her accent, and things have to change. And she needs to change with the times and become more prim and proper and more elegant and eloquent with her speaking voice, and having to become a completely different person, essentially. And Nellie just can't. And I don't blame her, because it sounds awful. And yeah, I mean, that's sort of where we're starting to, you know, get the turning point for her, is after a few sound films, she's sort of like, she's become old-fashioned, she's out of style. This whole tough, you know, New Jersey thing's not working. And she just can't adapt. She can't change. And, you know, this is when she starts, you know, getting more into gambling, and that gets her in a lot of trouble. And then that's when she just takes Manny down with her. And Manny's thing is a whole other.
Yeah, Nellie. Yeah, man. It really is. Yeah, George's death is such a turning point, because like we are starting to get some of the cracks of that. Sound is not working out for everyone, but yeah, once George dies, yeah, that's when Nellie really spirals and ruins her chances of ever being able to work in Hollywood again. And gambling at the grossest place ever, by the way. Fucking Tobey Maguire is so gross, dude. That fucking party is, dear God in heaven. But yeah, and then Manny, of course, you know, we are starting to kind of not like Manny, as he's, you know, really become immersed in sort of the greed and the internal politics of making a film. But he's still at his core a good person. And then yeah, Nellie just brings him down with her and fucks him over.
I will say, in that scene with Sydney, in the blackface, you know,
dude,
that is one of the hardest scenes, especially for Manny's character turn, because we can see that it really does bother him. You know, I think it really does. But he's right. Yeah. Like, if Sydney doesn't do it, everyone's out of a job. They can't sell this thing anymore. Like, it's Manny's just trying to help. Like, this is the way to do it. You want these people to get paid. You want these people to have a job. This is the only way, or it's all over. And like, I feel that. I feel that that internal struggle of like, dude, this is awful. Asking Sydney to do this, but would it be worse if he didn't? And this whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
especially because Nelly is really ruining Manny's reputation with Flea and Jeff Garlin. Manny's putting his career on the line, so I'm sure if Sydney were to tell him, I'm not doing this, and they have to shut the picture down, I'm sure Sydney would have been out of the job.
Yeah.
Or at least they would have knocked him down a few rungs and he wouldn't have had as much input anymore. And yeah, I agree. I think it's something that Manny didn't want to do, but he tried, without saying it, essentially to rationalize it to Sydney as this is the lesser of two evils.
Right.
And of course, in that way of a damned if you do, damned if you don't, there is no winner there. Yeah. And of course, it ruins sort of a friendship that Sydney had with Manny. And after they get done with the shots, that's, I love that he leaves the keys on the car and gives them his ticket. And they're like, well, you're going to need this. And he's like, I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
And
I like Sydney's sort of, this isn't really a downfall. This is a stepping away. He's just removing himself from it completely.
Yeah.
He's happier playing music for people that admire it and respect it and love it, and that's fine with Sydney. Sydney just wants to play music, I agree.
Yeah.
And his song at the end and the montage of where everyone ends up is heartbreaking in and of itself. It's one of those things too at the very end when you think that Manny and Nelly are finally just going to get away, they're going to be together, but they have to just stay out of Hollywood, which in and of itself, as we've already discussed, is a sort of failure and defeat because they can no longer be in Hollywood, which of course rationally is not true.
Yeah.
But we think they're going to, finally, right? And as she's dancing off into the distance and into the shadows and she's gone, it reminded me so much of those final words in Y tu mama también, which is when the narrator says, and they never saw each other again.
Yeah.
And which is true. In this case, he never saw her again. And I was struggling to think if I'm supposed to be taking this literally or figuratively, her dancing off into the distance. A part of me is like, duh, it's literal because he hops in the car. He's so
and she's gone
and so shaken that he doesn't have time to go look for her. He's got to go.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck it. I got to cut my losses. I got to get out of here. Right.
Yeah. 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 I do want to say the last, like 45 minutes of the movie ramp up so quickly, man. It's when Tobey Maguire comes in, dude. Yeah. And like, I'd seen the memes of Tobey Maguire, but Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It's gross.
Yeah, it's so gross.
Yeah.
The whole fucking underground party.
Needed this sequence. When we saw it in theater, she goes,
yeah.
I don't like this at all. I go, I don't either. This is scary.
I don't either. Moving the popcorn bucket. Yeah, I don't like it either. But yeah, dude, it's so gross and it's so weird. I would say of all the weird unhinged things in this movie, this is definitely the weirdest, this underground party. Uh-huh. But I do find it interesting that his like little personal hitman finds Manny so quickly.
Yeah.
Now, do you think it was the hitman's decision?
When he found Roy Scola, the Count.
Oh, that's true.
He didn't know Manny was going to be
it just happened to luck out that Manny was there. But do you think it was the hitman's decision to essentially let Manny go, or do you think that was Tobey Maguire's character?
Oh, for sure it was the hitman's decision. That's what I gathered.
Oh, seeing Manny pee himself, he was just kind of like, all right, just get the fuck out.
He's no threat. He probably didn't have anything to do with it. You can go.
Yeah, just yeah. Also, Ethan Suplee,
Yeah.
dude. But yeah, man. So I feel like we're getting close to the wrap up, and there's so much in this movie, and I loved every minute of it. And but yeah, the sequence when Manny takes his family to LA for the first time, it's also so heartbreaking because, again, like you've been mentioning, when he's watching Singing in the Rain, you know, it parallels everything that he went through.
Yeah.
You know.
And so,
and I forgot to mention that Nellie dies at 34,
right,
from a drug overdose.
So this is where the length of the movie is to its benefit, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because so much has happened now, and it's been a while. You know, it's been almost 3 hours. And this movie accomplishes something that very few films can. And this is just my experience, but this is how I felt, okay? When he's watching Singing in the Rain, and we're getting flashbacks, and we go back to that very first party where he met Nellie.
Mm-hmm.
I felt literal nostalgia. I felt like, wow, like that seems like so long ago, but we were so much happier then, and things were so much easier and freer, and you know, people can express themselves in any way they wanted, and it was, you know, it was Babylon, right? And
that's the name of the movie,
right? And I was so impressed that this film was able to get that reaction out of me, that I was able to feel a genuine sense of longing for a lost time that I had less than 3 hours ago. And I'm feeling this way, and I'm feeling so emotional about it, and I'm like, oh my God, like, so much has been lost, you know? And I felt such a longing to go back to a time where everyone was at the top of their game, everyone was so excited and so proud of making films, and you know, having the time of their lives. And then of course the film die and the scenes from, you know, films from the silent era all the way to modern day, I thought was pretty cool. I can see why people.
Can I tell you?
Yeah.
Can I tell you my one qualm?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. It's with that sequence of the progression of silent to sound to color to now.
Yeah.
Why did he have to pick Avatar?
I know.
Okay.
I
Jesus fucking Christ.
Normally, of course, I would have a problem with that because I hate that movie, but I get it because it was a landmark in film technology at the time. I'll give it a pass for that because yes, the technology was basically created for that movie. So
yeah,
I'll give it a pass because technologically it is a groundbreaking moment in modern cinema and modern filmmaking. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I could see why people may not like that because it's taking this meta commentary and this sort of fourth wall break a little bit too far. And now we've transcended the context of the plot and of the narrative of the movie itself. But I kind of liked it. I thought it was really cool because the music is just unbelievable.
Yeah. No, I agree. I enjoyed it too. It reminded me of, because you know I have to do this. I have to shoehorn in a Doctor Who thing. It reminded me of a movie that the BBC did to honor the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who, where It's called An Adventure in Time and Space. All about how the show was created, like the people who created it, how they filmed it, yada yada yada. Well, it ends with oh my god, Bradley. I can't remember his full name. Filch from the Harry Potter films.
Yeah.
He's playing William Hartnell, the first Doctor, and he's filming his final scene as the Doctor, and he looks across the TARDIS console, and they had Matt Smith, who at the time was the current Doctor, almost like he was seeing through time to see that the show would survive, and you know. So I also appreciated what Chazelle was trying to do, that in that moment we would see, you know, that Manny would almost kind of see what film would become.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I could see why people wouldn't like it, but I liked it.
I really liked it. Yeah, and I liked the transitional moments with the film dye. I really liked that.
Yeah.
With it suspended in the liquid, I thought that was so cool. Yeah, man, this movie is tremendous. I love this movie. If nothing else, just for, you know, it's so entertaining.
Yeah.
Of course,
I will say, and there was a lot more sex in the movie than I was expecting, but yeah, no, I also really enjoyed it. Also, Flea.
Yeah.
I should have mentioned this earlier. Flea playing a very serious role. I was like, holy Jesus. You know?
Anytime there's anything, I get so excited because I just like that he's still acting. You know? He doesn't have to.
I don't think he gets enough credit for how good of an actor he is. Especially with this movie. I feel like Chazelle, I'm sure, like with most actors, when given the correct material, he can really shine through.
He has a really good part in Queen and Slim, if you haven't seen that.
Which I should. It's on my shelf.
Yeah,
I just have not.
Yeah, he's really good in that too. And again, I just get excited because I'm like, oh, it's Flea, you know?
Yeah. With that being said, buddy, are you ready to wrap up?
I am. God, man, this movie's so good.
Yeah.
Good idea to do this one. Me.
Me? I was gonna say you. Even Ashley was like, "Was this your pick?" I was like, "No, this was Jeremy's pick." Yeah. Like,
I mean,
I know.
From the moment it started, when I first saw it, I was in love with this.
Yeah, man. Agreed. I hate that it took me so long to see it, because again, I wanted to see it the moment it was announced. But I'm glad I finally have. And you know, and it goes along with the show, honestly, of this love of film, and you know, getting to learn kind of what it was like in this transitional period.
Yeah.
Maybe one day I'll finally get Ashley to finish it. I don't think that'll ever happen. I think that elephant scene really ruined me. Yeah, because she doesn't like gross out stuff like that. So, and then of course the little person dancing on a dick and balls pogo stick, and then making it come. Yeah, and then making it come. I think she was. Yeah. Yeah, she was just like, yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I'm not going to keep going into the debauchery that the first 15 minutes goes through. But yeah. Well, buddy, with that being said, are you ready to hear about what we're going to talk about next week?
I'm excited.
You are, because in a way, you kind of picked this one.
Kind of, yeah.
I still left it up to chance, but you kind of picked this one. I'm excited too, because I remember you showing me your Criterion, and I was like, well, I got to fucking get this. This is really super cool. Yeah. The box art's really cool. I can always pick it out on my shelf, even if I'm not looking for it.
Super shiny.
And then it fascinated me that this movie was banned in China.
Yeah.
Which was so fascinating, because it was written and directed by an American filmmaker, about Chinese history. But I guess once I see the movie, because I did read a little bit that this person was the Chinese government did not
He was a
like him.
controversial figure.
But
in Chinese culture.
Yeah. But you have told me that the movie's fantastic. And I'm excited. And again, the whole point of my movies are to get me to finally watch these Criterions. So next week, we are talking about Paul Schrader's 1985 biopic, Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. Again, I'm super excited. I think Paul Schrader is also a madman. He's out of his mind, but I mean, he's given us so many fantastic films.
Yeah. I would say, I would say even recently, First Reformed. Oh my God, it's brilliant. Ethan Hawke is amazing in First Reformed. Everyone's got to see First Reformed. I mean, we'll do Mishima, but also watch First Reformed.
Yeah, and of course, he wrote the script for a movie that we've already done, Raging Bull.
Yep.
Which is a fucking phenomenal film.
Agreed.
I've told everyone that, I'm very picky when it comes to my sports films, and Raging Bull is definitely, I think, number one. Yep. I fucking love Raging Bull. But I've always, since you showed me the Mishima Criterion, I've just been so enamored with it. And then watching Paul Schrader talk about First Reformed in a director's roundtable, I was like, his brain works in such a interesting way. He's a very strange person, but I've wanted to see a movie that he has actually directed. His writing is phenomenal. Obviously, Raging Bull, Last Temptation of Christ, Taxi Driver. But I've always wanted to see him bring his vision to life. And I'm glad we're getting to do Mishima, which also gives me an excuse to break open that very shiny digibook. Future Rain may have used that, even though the picture doesn't do it justice.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, everyone, we hope you enjoyed this episode on Babylon, and we will see you next week for Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters.